wanted to have this panel discussion, talk a little bit about the creation of the ride. So with me to my left is our VP of Engineering here at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, that is Larry Giles. In the center is the President and Chief Creative Officer of Falcon's Creative Group, Cecil McCurry.
Hi.
And over here we have Director of Technical Services at Dreamcraft Attraction, that is Mark Stepine. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask questions as well. We'll get the discussion started, but if you have any questions, kind of raise your hands. My lovely assistant, Laura Flint, will be back here with a microphone to hand you a microphone to ask the questions, okay? The excitement is right. You guys bring this to creation. What do you think about it?
I think it's pretty cool that this is the 5th time we've changed this ride, and we've got a unique opportunity here to create something that spans a lot of the family unit. Everybody gets to enjoy it, and it brings in some technology that most people have never seen before.
I'm really excited for people to meet Addie.
Yeah.
We basically have been sculpting the story for almost 18 months, and that's as long as we've been involved since we were engaged, fortunately to be chosen to help realize this experience. And so we're really excited to see how VR is being introduced in a very unique way that's high capacity. So really, I can't think of anything in the world today that has this kind of experience offered to guests. So I'm really excited about having consumers be able to experience this.
Yeah, I think what I'm most excited about is the immersiveness of the storytelling. When you watch something on a projection screen like we all have for the last 20 or 30 years, the story feels sort of far away. And by integrating it into a VR system, it comes really close, and you can't get out of the story. And so I'm just really excited about the immersiveness of the experience.
Well, Cecil, speaking of the characters, could you explain to the board about the characters in this particular attraction?
Yeah, so there was kind of a haiku, the storyline that we were given, kind of as a premise. Had to be Irish, right? It's in Ireland.
It's Ireland.
So I had to have my pocket dictionary of Irish myth and legends as a premise to the thing. So ultimately, we did kind of a mashup of true storylines of mythology, but basically it's good versus evil. And a lot of you got to experience it and get to see the pre-show that kind of talks to the legend and lore. But the MacGuffin here was really the antagonist's pursuit of the heart of Eire. Eire meaning Ireland. It was the Irish word for Ireland. And so that was basically the premise of the storyline, where you have this antagonist, Balor, who's from true mythology and lore, trying to create imbalance between the other world, which is a Celtic and Gaelic mythology of an origin that's a parallel world to our real realm. And so we basically found an opportunity to create this attraction where the fairies have hidden the heart of Eire in the real world down below the castle. So ultimately, Balor could never find it, but he's been successful in turning fairies into sluaghs and gained information that the actual heart of Eire is now within his grasp. And so ultimately, our love for Ireland becomes the premise for success. So we are part of the heroes that help Addie and all of us create success.
Okay. And one of the neat things, of course, we've been watching this story, riding it over and over again. And being an engineer, I'm not as good a storyteller as Cecil here. But one of the fun things is as you ride this over and over again, you start picking up little tidbits of this, how deep and intricate the storyline is. And you're like, whoa, I didn't understand why they were doing that, but now I do, or I see this, or I see that. And first time riders won't see all that, but as they ride this over and over again, they'll start picking up more and more of the story. I think that makes it very interesting for coming back and trying it again.
And storytelling in general, I think VR, consumers are starting to realize that there's a different medium for storytelling, right? Game technology is real time. And so everything that to date in our realm of entertainment has been kind of pre-baked, an entertainment journey that's kind of pre-developed. What's unique about this is that you can actually look wherever you look and still be in the story. You're not constrained to a rectangular storytelling medium. So we have this amazing emotional arc that's developed. So one of the challenges is, how do you tell a story in 360? Well, the best way to simulate is not to simulate, right? Create an environment that is accessible to every consumer wherever they look. So that was some of the challenges of storytelling. You know, you definitely have the tenets of your traditional storytelling arcs, but we had to make sure that that was available to all guests wherever they're looking. So Old Fights becomes one of our catalysts that we ride, that is the motivator for our journey, you know, for flight.
Just take a step back, Larry. How was this ride conceived?
Well, this is the 5th generation of that started off with Questor, and those of us who are familiar with Questor will see a few tidbits in the pre-show. But one of the concepts we had is the flight simulator has always been a very state-of-the-art motion base. We run, it's hydraulically powered, provides great simulation on flight. But over the years, we've struggled always with the visual side of it. And our feeling has always been is that on a flight simulator or some motion-based platform like we have, the visual side is probably the most important thing. And that's always the side, starting with Questor and through the years, we've tried to improve, but now that VR, we see this VR opportunity. And we said, wow, marrying this to this motion base is going to be a very unique ride that is just going to be a fantastic experience. And of course, tying it in with a story was always our tough part. I mean, as an engineer, we're good at the mechanical and the electrical side, but the bringing in Falcons to take over the storyline really made the whole thing kind of come together.
And Mark, I want to ask you, why is now the time to bring in VR to Busch Gardens?
Yeah, I mean, VR is sort of, when we started 2 years ago, starting to get into VR, we approached an amusement industry that had a fairly generic VR experience. You'd get on a roller coaster or something, and again, it would tell not really a story, it was just visuals that you would look around. And finally, the technology is at a point where VR is ready for storytelling and really immersive storytelling that goes beyond just you're sitting on a roller coaster and watching things fly by you. And so I think this is the first experience really in the world that combines the movement from a simulator like this with an extremely immersive VR storytelling. And that wasn't possible even a year ago with computing and with the technology and hardware that we have.
Yeah, some of the bandwidth in real time, content to be able to be extracted and married to a simulator base. One of the things that is part of the success here is the capacity. That's something that is always a challenge. You can't lose capacity in the theme park. You have to have the same throughput. So all the due diligence that has been put in place to be able to have guests come fluidly through the experience and put on their headsets, having the head mount done earlier, having the display already attached to motion. These are things that have helped solve the mass engagement to VR.
Yeah, well, we've been working on that for over a year now. We've done extensive user testing on just those headsets that have gone through, I don't know, maybe 10 iterations at this point. To get them as comfortable as we can, as easy to use as we can, because to your point, what we saw is at a lot of other parks, sometimes the headset gets wiped off between uses, sometimes it doesn't. The hygiene was always an issue, but also the technology was brought on the ride and off the ride and on the ride, and so we tried to make some really strategic decisions to keep the hardware, the tech on the ride, and make it just like a 3D ride where you put on 3D glasses at the end of the ride, you throw them in the bucket, and they get washed. And I think that solution is going to be pretty great.
And also, kind of talking to this technology, from an engineering standpoint, this motion base is spectacular. It's amazing capabilities, but people don't come for technology, they come for story. So it's important to take that asset and choreograph something that's special. And one of the things I think we've done successfully is be able to take the content that we're doing, the XYZ data that we're producing in the media. We've been able to extract that, literally extract that XYZ data, implement that in the motion base. So the best way to mitigate risk of feeling ill is to have the synchronization between the motion base and the content be seamless. And that's something that we've done on this ride.
So that prevents that queasiness still in there.
Exactly, yeah. Once your middle ear is, feeling something that is different than your visuals, then...
We had a few test runs where it wasn't lined up, and I can tell you exactly that. Good feeling. So.
Before we go on, any questions from anyone here?
Thank you. When you integrated this new technology. To me, it seems like not only does it improve throughput, because you've got the whole hygiene separate from getting on and off the ride, but also is there a smaller investment cost because you have just a fixed number of headsets that are attached to the ride, and due to the hard wiring, they sync up better and operate better, or you don't have that independence.
Well, one thing we started when we first started the concept of this, we wanted to deliver not only a great experience, but the best VR experience out there. And as Mark was alluding to, I mean, one of the things that we centered on right away was being able to deliver the media in a way where it looks the best that the technology allows it to. And frankly, we've been banging up all for the last year into these technology stops. We're right at the very top of the technology where we are right now. And kind of keep coming up with workarounds. But in order to do that, you have to drive it with a computer versus some other type of technology. And so that's where one of the focuses we've always had was we got to have something where it has something driving it that has the horsepower to deliver the images that Falcons creates.
That's what I mean. Top of the line computers in a 4x4 inch little box, and so it's pretty impressive the output that those computers are delivering and really processing this media at so many frames per second. It's in real time. Like Cecil was saying, the reason those computers are necessary is because if I look left, the whole my world has to shift left, and the computer has to process all of that in real time, instantaneously. And so, those computers are pretty impressive.
Yeah, to circle back to your question on investment value, I don't know if it's could be said cheaper. The content development is equally as profound, if not more. The frame rates are high, the resolution is incredibly high. So I don't think it's a cheaper approach per se. So it really depends on how you're comparing it to whatever type of experience.
Okay, Cecil, going back to creating the media, give us a rough sketch about what it took to bring Battle For Eire to life.
So I think it's traditional in storytelling approaches for any kind of medium, feature film, television. You go through scripts and storylines. And so we did a lot of research about the mythology and lore of the characters and what have you. Came up with multiple scenarios, presented it both to corporate and Williamsburg as well, and ultimately came up with a locked script where we start to move into storyboards and start to do sequential art. The challenge for sequential art for VR is profound because it's 360. It's not just storyboards that are traditionally rectangular. So ultimately we had to immediately go into content development. So from script, we started modeling the characters immediately at low resolution and started to work the choreography in VR immediately in the concept phase. So that's something that's unique, that would be different than any traditional content, because most of the money that's invested in content development to get to this look depth of the characters usually happens after they're bought off in illustrations and tournaments. But ultimately, we had to go progress pretty quickly and identify. Some of the challenges in VR is scaling. You may not recognize this as a traditional consumer, but Addie's only 6 inches tall compared to Baylor, who's 18 feet tall. So how do you deal with that lensing logic within the VR? Well, she has to be closer in proximity, and how's her interocular work in 3D? So these are a lot of back-to-house VR experiences that are done that are in parallel to the story. So pretty profound. A lot of mock-up and milestones throughout the content. That was kind of the success, I think.
I was curious if how the motion-based synchronization occurred. Did you come up with the program first and then mated it with the visuals, or was it a fine-tuning that occurred throughout the process?
Well, the first thing that occurs is Falcons will build the media. And as Cecil was talking about, they pulled out XYZ data and were able to actually provide motion bases, a mini motion-based video that we were able to utilize during our programming phase.
So we literally, in CGI, built the exact motion base.
So you put the box in
the content. So we were able, obviously Olaphice is flying through the sky in extreme positions. But if you constrain the position of a floor to that motion, there's only certain pitch and roll that is relevant to the motion base. You're not literally flying up hundreds of feet. So we're able to exercise translating that data into the motion-based virtually. And then they have a unique software that allows that visual to now get imported into the motion-based itself. So yeah, it was a pretty profound process. But ultimately, from a storytelling standpoint, we weren't limited to how we create the experience. Let the story drive the experience.
So the cleanliness of the headgear, can you go into detail about the sanitation process?
Right now what we do is you wear the mask, you put that on, and the mask is then collected at the end. It goes over to a special washing system that we have in another building. And each unit's washed, sanitized, blown dry. We do a quality control check to make sure nothing's changed on it. There's little pieces of metals on there that your headset attaches to. So those are the things that it goes through, and then we turn them back to the unit to be reused.
Similar to what you would do for
it's yeah, very similar to what 3D glasses, the history along there that we've had here for a number of years. Same thing, very similar.
Can you talk a little more about the design of the headset strap, the green part, and how it connects? What process you went through in deciding that was the best way to mount that?
The mask versus the headset. Well,
yeah. I mean, so we started that actually separate from this project 2 years ago. When we, like I said, we approached the industry and said, "Man, there's got to be a better solution." And so we had started off with just basically like the inside of a hard hat was sort of our premise, yeah. And the thing that we liked about that was it had like a over the top of the head strap, which helped take some of the weight of the device off. But ultimately, we couldn't go with that because people have buns on top of their head. There's so many things that sit here that could be a problem, and so we took that off and went through I don't know, maybe 10 iterations of trying this out, giving it to people who have never ever seen this, and said, "Put it on." And they turn it upside down and put it on sideways, and it's like, "Is this right?" It's like,
we would dive bomb people in our offices. They'd be working, and we'd throw it on the desk, and they'd put it on. And we didn't want to give them information on how to do it, just to see how intuitive it was. And we found it fairly intuitive. People would try it. We did like no nose guard, we found that was real important for alignment, because we took that off. We had different sizes we had.
There was 10 different iterations.
Yeah, it was continuously improved each time.
And to Larry's point about the washing procedure, that was also one of our challenges. These things get washed sometimes twice or 3 times a day, depending on how many people are coming through this attraction and how quickly they have to wash them. And so, these things have to be able to withstand temperatures almost 200 degrees Fahrenheit, so really high for the desanitation. We have foam in there, so it's a specialty foam that doesn't absorb water and doesn't, absorb mildews and body oils and all this stuff. And we also have special adhesive that holds that foam and the steel receivers for those magnets that clicks it into place. So we spent, a good 2 years really developing and coming to where it is now. And it's something that I think we're looking forward to continuing to progress as we move forward.
When we started this, we had actually independently, we were trying to come up with a way at Busch Gardens. We said we want to get VR. We think it's the right time for it. It mates really well, as we already talked about with our motion biz. And it was really a chance meeting with Dreamcraft that they walked in and were like, okay, now how are we going to get the heads? The very questions you guys are asking is, how do we get the throughput? How do we get the cleanliness? And we had all these different ideas. Do you carry it in? Do you somehow have it? And then in a meeting with them, they had this concept they showed us with the 3 magnets. And we went, wow, that's the way it works.
Yeah, because what we noticed, especially on the coasters, so much of the time spent, why the dispatch intervals on coasters went from 2 minutes to 10 minutes was because it was so intensive. One operator would just sit and, okay, does this feel good? What have we got to adjust this Velcro? It was so labor intensive to adjust this thing. And so we said, well, let's move that to the pre-show. And so like you guys, when you experience it, you walk in with the headset on, everything's already adjusted. You snap the thing in place, you may have to do some minor adjustment, but all of the really long process of getting it fit right, does it fit in my face, all that stuff, you do that before you even get on the ride, so it's quick. You get in, you snap, you ride, and you're done.
I know it might sound kind of weird because it's a new ride and everything, but as far as upgrades, I know technology moves, fast. And a year or two down the line, if the headsets, have upgraded a lot, is there room for expansion or upgrades?
Oh, absolutely. The headsets right now are limited by the displays inside, and the displays are, I think they're 1080 by 1200, something like that.
1200 in each eye.
In each eye. So, I mean, in today's world, if you had a 1080 on your TV, you wouldn't be too happy with it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for tightening that up, making that more highly defined, and also too the weights have been coming down. And we actually ended up with the next version on that unit, and it dropped weight off it. Our previous version had a lot more weight on it, so I think the weights will come down and the media will go up, the visual opportunities will go up, and we just got to figure out too is the computing power that we need to drive those images. As Mark was saying, we're taking an i7, 8th generation, I believe, computer, and we're working the heck out of it. And just to keep up with the frame rates and the resolution that we have.
From our side, in terms of upgrades, what I've been so impressed with, and I think what we've seen feedback-wise is, especially at the end scene where you are focusing on the heart of Eire and it becomes an interactive experience. You are part of the story, you become the hero or heroine of the story. I'm excited to think about future ways that we can increase that interactivity. That's the beauty of the Vive and VR in general is you have these really immersive experiences and you can interact with the story. One of the parts that's the favorite of mine is where the dragon gets like in your face, and you guys again program the motion base beautifully to really lean in, so you feel like you're nose to nose with this dragon, and having taking those really intimate experiences and expanding them to be even more interactive is something that's coming down a pipe, especially with technology-wise. We're really starting to get close to that.
Yeah, I was just curious, was there any element of this project, either creatively or engineering-wise, that ended up being much harder than you initially expected?
And then everything to do.
Everything. Yeah, it was not an easy task. I mean, I think on theory, it seemed like we had a very clean roadmap to get to the finish line. It's very aggressive schedule, very aggressive in resolution, very aggressive in compute power. So everything was a challenge, and then it gets compounded, right? So ultimately, I mean, I think almost every component of this had to be innovative. So I don't know of any one component that was smooth in the sense of traditional approach.
One of the things we struggled with was, in our headquarters, we would have, 4 Vive set up. And, it was impossible for us to duplicate the motion base in our little studio in Victoria and to get 59 Vives all running at the same time. And so that was an interesting hiccup or hurdle for us to get over was, okay, we've done it successfully with 4, and how do we do it with 59? And that was a huge step just to get all these computers and pushing updates and everything out with 59 just made everything literally 10 times more challenging.
And from a content development standpoint, your focus and the choreography, typically most simulator rides have a bogey that you focus on. We were trying to take attributes from existing storytelling mediums that are in motion, but in reality, this is also another layer that's unique where you have guests potentially not looking at that focus. And depth of field and being able to focus by motion blur and all these components, those are things that you don't use in VR because the frame rate's too high. So these are unique things that have never really been thought through. There's not really any past experience in VR that is relevant. So we had to basically be frontiersmen, if you will, in the content side. So very, very challenging.
So as we wrap up our panel discussion here, what do you want folks to walk away from this experience? As far as like riding the ride, what do you want them to say when they walk away?
Well, just like any ride we have here at Busch Gardens, they come for different things. Paula's Chariot delivers one thing. I think I think part of this is the richness of the experience, the length of the experience. This is one of our longest experiences you're going to have. I mean, by the time you enter the first show to the time you leave is, you know, could be up to 10 minutes. So it's a nice long experience, and it's a lot of fun. And I think the entire family gets to enjoy it together.
All right, well, folks, thank you very much for participating, coming to our Media Day event. I hope you enjoyed the new ride. You were the first among the public to see it, so yeah, we really hope that you came away with a very positive experience. And thank you for coming out. Just to tell you that we're going to open the attraction in April. No firm date set yet, but it will open in April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.